Sometimes life seems like a path we're not traveling of our own free will. You wake up in the morning, stare at the ceiling, and feel stuck between yesterday and tomorrow, in a strange void where everything seems normal, but something inside whispers that there could be more. More strength. More confidence. More meaning. And then one day you notice that it's not external enemies that are holding you back, but something quiet, almost imperceptible, habits that, like thin threads, hold you in place. You feel their presence, but you can't name them. Until one day you realize, to escape this shadow, you have to look within. Where the real struggle lies, between your strengths and your weaknesses. And this journey, no matter how terrifying it may seem, can be the beginning of your transformation. Sometimes the enemy doesn't live outside, it lives inside our heads. You might be walking down the street, doing your usual things, but suddenly you hear a quiet, almost imperceptible whisper, "You can't handle it again. You're not good enough. You'll screw everything up again." And the most dangerous thing about this whisper is that it sounds like your own. It penetrates deeper than any external criticism, because you believe it more than anyone else. But one day you notice, each of these words is like a small stone in your backpack. You move forward, but the further you go, the heavier it gets. And all this time, you don't even realize you're the one carrying this backpack. At some point, you stop and ask, who even said this was true? And that's when the change begins, small, almost imperceptible, but it's the one that changes everything else. Sometimes, without even noticing, we begin to live someone else's life. You wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and it's as if you're asking not yourself, but an invisible crowd around you, is this normal? Am I good enough? What will people say? This is how a quiet, unnoticeable trap begins. At first, you simply want to be understood. Then, to be approved of. And then your mood, decisions, and even dreams begin to depend on someone's like, sigh, or random comment. The Stoics said, you are only responsible for what you can control. But the moment you put your dignity in the hands of others, you lose. Because opinions change. Tastes change. Moods change. And you're left with an emptiness inside that no one has been able to fill. This section is about the moment when a person first realizes that they've been chasing approval their whole life, but it doesn't make them happy. And it is with this realization that the journey back to yourself begins. Sometimes life seems to whisper to you, look, here's another reason to complain, and you give in. Quietly, almost imperceptibly. You tell yourself how unfair everything is, how circumstances are crushing you, how the world seems to be conspiring against you. And in that moment, you don't even notice, you're giving away your power. Complaining doesn't solve the problem, it only reinforces the victim role. You become a prisoner of your own words, as if chaining yourself to what you don't like. And the more you complain, the heavier these chains become. But one day you catch yourself thinking, what if strength isn't outside, but within? The Stoics said, it's not the one who suffers from life's blows, but the one who decides the blow is unbearable. Imagine, you stop complaining and instead ask yourself, what can I do right now? So, with one simple thought, you tug at a link in your chains, and for the first time, you feel that they might not be as strong as they seemed. Life won't get easier. But you will become stronger. Sometimes it seems that somewhere ahead of us lies that one purchase, thing, or achievement that will finally fill the emptiness inside. We run, grab, and clutch everything that glitters in our hands, but the tighter we squeeze, the more we feel our own emptiness. So the hero of this story one day realized that each of his successes lasts exactly one day, and then disappears, as if it had never mattered. He looked at his life and saw how the things he had pursued for years now lay forgotten on the shelf. What's worse, the meaning was forgotten along with them. But one day he heard a simple phrase from Seneca. True happiness is enjoying the present without clinging to the future. And in that moment, he realized, he hadn't been living all this time. He had been collecting glitter, not moments. He understood that wealth isn't something you can put in a closet. Wealth is the ability to live day by day without regretting anything. From that day on, he began to slowly recalibrate himself. He learned to find joy in the silence of the morning, in a short conversation, in his own growth. And the less he pursued glitter, the more light appeared within him. And for the first time in a long time, he felt alive. Sometimes the past clings to us so tightly, as if it had its own hands. You move forward, but shadows still linger behind you, old mistakes, missed chances, words you can't take back. And then one day you catch yourself thinking that you're living not in the present, but in the echoes of something long past. The protagonist begins to understand this when he spends another evening sorting through his mistakes like tattered letters. He tries again and again to rewind his life, as if hoping the film will one day change the frames. But the past is stubborn, it doesn't change. One day, he hears a phrase in his head, as if spoken by someone wise, the past is not yours, it already happened. Yours is only what you do next. And it is at that moment that he decides for the first time to let go. Not to forget, not to erase, but to embrace. Like scars on the skin that don't disfigure but remind you of who you've become. He closes the door to the room where regrets are stored and turns to the future. The past hung on him like a heavy chain, as if every step forward dragged with it the weight of old mistakes, blunders, and words that could no longer be taken back. At night, he replayed the same scenes in his head, as if hoping to rewrite them with the power of thought. But one day, he realized that all these memories weren't a guide to action, but merely shadows that lived only because he allowed them to. And then he did what he'd previously lacked the courage to do, he looked at his past directly, without trying to justify or rewrite. He realized that mistakes weren't a death sentence, but traces of a path. Traces of those who walked, not those who stood still. And, for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to say quietly, yes, I made mistakes. But that's not what defines me now. At that moment, the chain shook. It didn't disappear, but it became lighter. And he stepped forward, to a place where the past no longer held him back, but merely guided him. But here's the most amazing thing, when you finally stop fighting life itself, it suddenly begins to play on your side. You begin to notice how past mistakes turn into experience, difficulties into character training, and the habits that once weakened you no longer have power over you. You look back and realize, everything that once dragged you down has now become the steps by which you climbed higher. And at that moment, you ask yourself the most important question, what next? The answer is simple, your journey is just beginning. You just have to take one step, honest, conscious, yours. And if you're ready, what lies ahead is not just a new chapter, but a new life. How many times have you caught yourself dwelling on past mistakes, on moments you wish you could have experienced differently? These memories, like invisible chains, drag us back, preventing us from moving forward. Every time you get stuck in regret, you give your power to events over which you have no control. Stoicism teaches that the past cannot be changed, but you can control your attitude toward it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that our mind is the only thing we truly have power over. Instead of tormenting ourselves, we can use the past as a source of lessons and wisdom. Mistakes do not define us, they only point the way to growth. Practicing self-forgiveness, accepting your past, and focusing on the present will help break the chains of regret. When you let go of the past and shift your attention to your actions today, life gains clarity, and you find the power to create a future full of meaning and purpose. And so we reach the end of our journey through the 7 habits that weaken us. Procrastination, negative self-talk, seeking external approval, complaining, excessive materialism, avoiding challenges, and preoccupation with the past, all of them are like invisible shackles that hold back our strength and potential. But Stoicism shows the path to liberation. Accepting what is within our control, cultivating virtues, facing difficulties head-on, mindfulness, and self-forgiveness, these are the tools that transform weaknesses into strengths. Every time we choose to act despite our fears, to tell ourselves the truth despite our doubts, to focus on the present rather than on regrets, we become stronger. By transforming these habits, you open the door to a life filled with purpose, resilience, and inner peace. Stoicism doesn't promise an easy path, but it provides a map to follow, even when the world around us is chaotic. Start with small steps, and with each passing day you will feel your strength growing, and your life becoming clearer and richer. Remember, strength does not come from the absence of difficulties, but from the ability to face them with dignity and courage. Your journey is just beginning, and every moment of the present is already in your hands.